My dear friends, today also, these days we are seeing that Jesus is constantly telling us what it needs to be done to be the real disciple of Him. Yesterday we saw. And today also is another thing about fasting which these disciples of John are questioning Jesus, and Jesus answers them in a very beautiful way. They are worried about little fasting, why Jesus' disciples are not fasting like us. And Jesus says in a very nice way, when the wedding guest is with them, how can the guests, when the wedding bridegroom is them, how can the guests mourn? My dear friends, in a way, these disciples were not fasting because Jesus was with them, because they were joyous, they were happy, and we can see that they are not fasting because they were participating in something more. That more is in the mission of Jesus. They are participating in the mission of Jesus. Perhaps they were fasting in a different way. John's disciples, they have a little meaning of fasting, like abstaining from food. But Jesus' disciples were fasting in a way, they were helping Jesus in his ministry, especially feeding the poor, giving drink to the poor, counseling those who are not in good terms, forgiving, healing the sick. So in this way, Jesus' disciples were doing the acts of corporal or the acts of mercy. That is the way they were helping in the mission of Jesus. And Jesus also today through this passage invites each and every one of us to do the real kind of fasting. Maybe not when we speak about fasting, we always think like we have to abstain from food. But Jesus is saying that is not really important. What is important is what comes from your heart. Maybe you and I are not like that much, we might not be having that much craving for food, but we might be having something craving for other things. So Jesus is saying to deny that thing. Fasting means maybe I watch too much of TV, maybe I drink too much, maybe I have this certain ability to do, or this thing I like to do too much, and it takes a lot of my time, and it takes you away from God. But Jesus is telling, no, you have to abstain from these things which is taking you away from the presence of the Lord. And we see here Jesus is with the disciples, and the disciples are joyful. When we do fasting, my dear brothers and sisters, it should not be like, we are doing for the sake of doing. Now it's Lent season and we have to do fasting. Okay, it should come from within your heart for what you are doing. Jesus wants us to open our eyes to the fact that fasting is not only like for the bodily or physical food abstinence, but fasting is for that when we do fast, we should experience Jesus, we should experience the love of Jesus more, and through our lives, others should see Jesus in our lives. So that is what Jesus is asking of each one of us. So let us ask for this grace, the grace to transform ourselves first, transform our lives, and ask Jesus to come into our lives. Only once we experience Jesus in our lives, people will be able to experience Jesus through our lives. So let us ask for this grace and pray for this during this Eucharistic celebration.